guys, it is AI Live time, and it's on my show today because we kicked Lori out. No, we did not. She had to ditch me last minute because she found out she had to actually speak at AmSpa, which I will be flying out on Thursday to speak at. But she had to speak for Galderma, so it's just going to be you and me today. We have some fun topics. I think we're going to get interactive today, a little bit different because it's just me, and I don't think you guys want to listen to me talk for the whole hour. So ask your questions. We're going to be talking a little bit more about what I kind of think it takes to become a successful injector, kind of through my experience of the last 17 years and how we've grown our practices. And so we'll kind of talk about what that entails. So hopefully you guys bring your questions so that we can get interactive and answer things. But in the meantime, before we get started, I was told that I have a couple of housekeeping things to talk about. Let's see. So what new treatments do I have in our office that can tie in? I don't know what new treatments. We've been doing a lot of fun things with threads lately. We just hosted the VI Must, which is our which was the conference for Mint, which was really cool. So if you want, I think you can go on Mint's website or Instagram and still purchase that. I think it will be up in the next couple of weeks for you guys if you guys want to watch it. But we have a couple of things coming up. I think in 2 weeks, we're doing a webinar on neurotoxins. So for any of you guys, we're going to go back to the basics. I think having gone, and Lori and I go and do a lot of trainings and things like that, and seeing a lot of the things that people really don't go and understand about basic neurotoxins, like what muscle groups are in the glabella area. People don't actually really know. Where's the origin? Where's the insertion? Just talking about basics of glabellars, foreheads, crow's feet, kind of really delving into these toxins and really getting away from the fluff of it all and really getting into the whys of why we do neurotoxins. And really, if you understand that, you're going to help your base foundation and really grow with regards to understanding how to create your artistry with toxins. So if you want to join us, we're going to be hosting our webinar in 2 weeks, May 18th. Just check out the website, theaestheticemergent.com. And let's see, the next is our Foundations of Threads class. So if you guys are interested in threads, we have a didactic portion that if you join us, you'll get access to our didactic portion. It's like a 3 or 4 hour module of threads and the understanding of threads and the discussion of threads. And then once you take that, you can come in on May 22nd. It's a Saturday. And we will be doing hands-on with you guys, with your models. Me and Lori will be. And so we're going to play with lots of threads on that day. So if you are interested in that, check out the website as well. Our next Foundations of Aesthetics, which is for our newer injectors and dentists as well. This is for you guys who really need to get a good foundation. I think our class, our foundations class, is an amazing class. We really spent time really trying to hone in on the whys. Instead of just saying, oh, inject here, we actually go into why are you injecting there? And explaining the whys of everything with regards to your basic foundations of toxins as well as your fillers. So if you haven't really gotten a really good course and really are questioning, why am I injecting these things? I'm just was taught to inject here. Really, it's a great course for you guys to join as well. We just got our CMEs with regards to that. So with that module course that you will be doing, which is probably a 12 to 20 hour course, depending on how slow you want to go through it, you'll get 10 units of CME credits for that as well. With regards to the hands-on portion, you'll get another 5.5 units of CME credits for that. So right there, 15.5 CME credits for that. So that's going to be a great course for you guys. What else do I have to talk about? AI Live. Oh, our next AI Live. Finally, Lori and I will be back together. I think I ditched her last time because I was on vacation, but it's going to be on dangerous techniques. You know, you're hearing a lot of people talk about weird, wacky things that they're doing, including like the Hyla pens and stuff like that. So I think Lori and I will be talking a lot about these dangerous techniques and things like that. What is good, what may not be as bad as we think. So that will be the first Tuesday in June. So if you want, register for that. One more thing, our cadaver course. We had an amazing cadaver course through Canadian Aesthetic Association, and we are having Dr. Kodafana come back out and do a cadaver course. Actually, to me, he is premier anatomist, really dissected out. Actually, he kind of changed a couple of the things that I was misinformed about with this last time. So if you guys want a really good anatomy course, this is not too much for, I would say, beginner people. I think this is more for people who have been doing aesthetics for just a little bit of time and now want to push the border, really understand what anatomically am I injecting through, where anatomically should I be injecting, what's safe, what's not safe. These are the questions that you should bring in, because Kodafana makes it, it's a small, intimate thing. So our first day is already sold out, which was June 12th. The second day only has a couple more spots left. So bring your questions. He actually sits there and answers your questions and dissects it out with you. So it's going to be really cool day. So there's only a couple more seats left for the June 13th class. So if you want more information, go to our website. And we have a cool thing coming out that we'll be launching soon. It's going to be our mentorship program. So look for more information about our mentorship program. It'll launch on May 25th. So if you want more information, jump online, register for it. But Lori and I have decided to do some kind of a cool mentorship program for all of you guys. And it'll be at the end of the month at 6 p.m. All right. I think I'm supposed to get started now. But I have a couple of questions first. What should I do if I inject filler inside the artery? If you inject filler inside the artery, couple of things you want to do. First of all, stop injecting. You know, when it comes to occlusions, vascular occlusions, I think in the 17 years that I've been doing this, I've had one that I really can think of. There are one or two that I'm like, not sure if I still injected Hylenex in that area. So as Lori always talks about, you should always have somewhere between 16 to 20 boxes of Hylenex with you. If you have that feeling that you're getting a vascular occlusion, don't be afraid of telling the patient, hey, I'm not sure, but I may have, you know, we may have blocked a little bit of the artery. I need to inject something to dissolve the product out. Let's deal with the ramifications of re-injecting you or something like that later on, but let's make sure that we're safe about our injection currently. And inject it with some Hylenex. You know, follow up the patient. Remember, this is not an emergency, it's an urgency type of a thing. The one occlusion that I have actually did not blanch right away. You know, all these arteries, you have to remember that they are supposedly bigger in the areas that you're actually injecting, and they end up breaking apart once they're in the artery, because there's 120 milligrams of blood flow pressure flowing through these arteries. So it's once you start injecting your product, remember we talk about injecting slower, and the thought pattern with injecting slower is that you're not pushing so much into there and you're flowing into that. But ultimately, just be a little bit more into being a little bit more careful and really addressing those type of issues a little bit earlier. But you know, follow it out as you normally would with the protocol on that aspect of it. But to answer one question, but let's jump into tonight's topic. Tonight's topic was 5 tips on how to become a successful injector. So ultimately, you know, I've been doing this for 17 years. I don't think some of you guys don't know this, but I started when I was a second-year resident, and this was back in 2004. 1 Botox, 1 Restylane. There were some collagens that were starting to phase out of the industry, and then a year or 2 later, like Radius, which was Radiance back there, is coming out. So ultimately, you know, I've seen a lot of changes in our industry, and I've actually trained a lot of actually my own staff. That's kind of how education's come about for me, is more about me educating my staff as we've grown our practice. Lori was one, actually, that came to me, and we started hitting it off and started training her. And I am very proud to say that hopefully she is better than me. So ultimately, you know, everybody's gonna have their own pathway as far as being an injector. I think if you are a brand new injector, one of the things that you wanna make sure is that you understand that most practices, especially nowadays, are looking for a little bit of people who have a little bit of experience. So look at that first year of being in this industry as being something like an internship. You don't have any skill sets, and this is what I've been telling a lot of the people I interview who are trying to get into this field for my own clinics, is if you don't show these clinics that you really are interested in, spending some money going to educational programs, ones that are more informational for you, that's going to grow your foundation. Not necessarily that you have to go to conferences. I think conferences are great early on if you're taking the early classes for foundational stuff. But as far as learning and stuff like that, conferences are much better for people who have been in the industry for a little bit of time, so that they can actually start to expand their knowledge base and really start to challenge themselves and grow their mindset. But ultimately, in the beginning, when you're first beginning, it really, really is building that strong foundation. What is toxins? Why am I injecting these things? Where am I injecting these things? What am I affecting? Those are the things that need to be going through your mind as you're really, really starting to jump into this field. Take that first year and really look at spending money doing your education. It's kind of like when I graduated medical school. At the end of the day, you get a little bit of experience in your third and fourth year as a medical student, trying to do some procedures and take care of one patient or two patients. But really isn't until you get into residency and internship that you really now are taking it into your own hands, and these are your patients and you're responsible for taking care of it. So, you know, until you start to really, really develop that, I think that first year of really getting into this should be looked at as an internship year. Don't look at it as like, I need to make a certain amount of money. If you're in this, you should be doing your normal medical practices. If you're ER, ICU, physician, those type of things, look at this as your side job as far as getting experience, as far as getting experience, as far as getting education. The whole aspect is, I'm going to get paid to have zero experience, zero knowledge base, zero any skill set into this field. Really, really boggles my mind in some sort of way. You can't get experience without spending your own time and money doing it. And so I sometimes recommend people find a practice that's willing to take you on and start to maybe work for them for free, you know, or work for them at the level of maybe getting paid like a medical assistant, so that you're gaining some experience. You can get some hands-on experience. You can start to really build your foundation. Take your educational classes that are really, really gonna build your foundation strong, and get that experience. Because until you start to get the hands-on experience, do you really, really understand that? And so that's why I call it really kind of that internship year, is that first year, is really getting in there, diving into it, really getting that experience and really feeling, touching, seeing what great things you do and seeing what things that you still need to improve on in that first year. And then from there, exponentially making more money, whatever it is that floats your boat, is going to come more naturally, because now you have an experience. You can jump to a place that is going to pay you more. You can jump to a place that's going to get you more education, more experience from your base foundation. But ultimately, I really think that a lot of practitioners really need to spend the time really, really learning the foundations, and really spending time learning the foundations and honing their skill set. So that first year really should be looked at as an internship year. You can get paid well while doing that, more power to you. But for those that are still looking and really, really searching for it, look for a place where you can you know, keep your job. Work extra hard at that so you can get your bills paid, really, really knowing that you want to jump into this field and learn about the things in this field so that you can really start to excel into that. So that's one of the big things that I really, really suggest for an injector who is early getting into this field. The next thing is kind of being trainable and being open-minded. I think as I've grown over the years, the way I've injected has changed, and it's from being more open-minded and not saying, oh, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, really questioning why is it that you don't do that? Because you're more, this is an industry of medicine that we're still practicing, we're still learning, we're still changing. You know, one example is, you know, when I first got started, I was injecting glabellars, I was injecting noses and things like that, and not understanding really the ramifications earlier on. As we get more knowledge base, as we understand the anatomy and everything with regards to rheology and understanding these products more, that we can dissolve certain ones, can't dissolve other ones. Now it's changed the way I've practiced, and I'm changing and flip-flopping and opening up my mind to different things. But a lot of the things that I've been told, like, you know, hey, the blood vessels in this area, in the supraorbital area, the supratrochlear, supraorbital, really come in at the bone and really are deep, and then they become more superficial. So you shouldn't really inject into this area. So I said, okay, that makes kind of sense. You know, anatomically that makes sense, blah, blah, blah. And so I changed it and I stopped injecting into that area. Well, lo and behold, last month, Dr. Kodafana was here doing anatomy dissection, and he was dissecting out this whole area. And as he was dissecting it out, I was realizing, and he even pointed it out, look, down in here, it's actually on bone is safe. It's actually, the blood vessels actually don't go onto the bone right as it comes out of the supraorbital notch. They actually dive right into a mid-plane tissue space, and so therefore starts to actually come up into the middle portion of the tissue and then come up more superficially as it gets up into the forehead. And so that kind of just made me think, hey, you know what? The things that I was doing in the past actually were, for the most part, safe-ish. You know, nothing is ever safe, it's safer. But ultimately that tells me that, hey, I could still, maybe still, if I wanted to, inject into those areas if I needed to, because it is still in a safer plane. So being open-minded and being trainable is really, really important. I think I've gone to a lot of trainings, unfortunately. I've bumped into practitioners who have been doing this for just as long as I have, and they kind of sit there and go, yeah, whatever, and they really aren't open-minded enough to just gather that there's many different ways, different techniques, different ways of approaching a problem that may expand upon their knowledge base. And so they sit there like, oh yeah, I took a course from Dr. Yolen, I took a course from Black person, I have them on my speed dial. And they sit there and I go, okay, well that's great. Well, I'm here because the company has brought me in here to talk and train and stuff like that. So let's see what we can gather in information. I think every experience that you have, you should be able to gather some sort of new pearl, some sort of thing that makes you think and talk about and challenge yourself to grow in the aspect of it. I hear people talk about this and that. Like one time I heard somebody talk about injecting on the hairline and stuff like that. And so I honestly was like, that's weird. And this is early on in my career. I'm like injecting more mid-faces. And so I was like, you know what, that sounds very interesting. You look at anatomy, okay, decently safe, you know. I think a lot of people are afraid of injecting this area just because of this, you know, the arteries and things like that. But if you delve into it anatomically, there are some safer areas to be injecting. And so I actually started injecting back up in here, and I was like, you know what, that actually does lift the face. And so, you know, I've actually been doing that probably for the last 10 years, where I actually do inject into the temples and into the posterior hairlines. And honestly, it's done a beautiful, beautiful job for my patients on lifting up the face. And, you know, fast forward now, lo and behold, if you read Dr. Kodafana's paper, it actually talks about injecting into this posterior temple area underneath the scalp area. He injects more into the subcutaneous plane. I did inject into the more deeper plane. But he actually does talk about it in his research paper that it actually does lift the face back up. And so ultimately, that is being open-minded, because when you're open-minded and listening to what other people are talking about, you may pick up little pearls that challenge you to go, you know what? Let me play around with that idea and see what it does for my patients, because ultimately that may change the way your whole focus and the way you inject really, really comes out and plays out. Because that, to me, has changed my game way long ago, where I actually do inject a lot into the posterior portion of the face and see how amazing that does, you know, and just being open-minded, being observant on that aspect of it. One other thing is, you know, when I was doing like a lot of thermages, I would do a lot of thermages, and I actually feel how patients, as I would tighten their skin, how they would actually become very, very hollow back into this area. And that kind of helped me understand, hey, there is some volume loss in here. We need to start injecting it. This is before we really started talking about volume loss from the deeper fat pads and the bone structures and how those all change. But I noticed it just clinically on my patients, and that translated into me changing a lot of the way I inject. And so that's honestly where you know, a lot of these things are that you're going to advance, is by keeping an open mind, always taking in pearls, listening to what other people are talking about and thinking about it. Does it make sense to you? Trying out new things. You know, a lot of us are creatures of habit. We love to do the same thing over and over again because, and it's reproducible, which is great. However, you may find that trying out a new technique, and remember, new techniques are always going to be challenging. You have to give it a certain amount of time and trial before you say, I don't want to do that again. I'm not going to do that. That didn't get me the results. You know, ultimately, if that person is getting good results, you know, reach out to them, ask them. This is where, you know, mentoring comes into play. That's kind of another success, another tip as far as being a successful injector. You know, ultimately, there are always going to be people that you consider your mentors or your peers. Reach out to them. I know the nurses and the PAs and the NPs are much better than us as physicians as forming these nice little groups that really get together and chit chat and really, really share knowledge amongst each other. So keep doing that, you know, keep asking questions. You know, there is no real stupid question unless you really haven't looked into it and really tried to answer some of the questions before yourself. And then if you really don't know, then ask. You know, I think it's important to ask questions, important to have mentors that really you can look up to, that really are like, hey, why are you doing that? What was the purpose in that? How can I get better, or what do you expect when I inject here, what's going to happen? And hopefully they can help explain why they're injecting that way, not just, I just inject that way. Because that's not what you want to hear from people that are going to be your mentors, your peers. They should be able to help you understand why they're doing it and give you an explanation, because that's how you're going to grow, when you understand the whys. And you know, that's where Lori and I come from when we're educating. Is I think a lot of us, both of us, want to help people understand the whys. The why really, really is kind of, you know, that saying that people talk about, is like, you got to teach people the fish and not just give them the fish, because you know, if you really do teach them the fish, they will be able to survive on their own once they're out of your watchful eye. And so that's the whole thing, is for me, is when I teach my staff, I try to make sure that they understand the whys, that when I explain things to them, they can answer back to me on why they're thinking this way, why they're doing things in this way, whether it is an injectable or whether it's a laser, or even just looking at a patient's face and how you're addressing it, and understand the aging process. So I think that really is important, is having good mentors and peers. They don't have to be constantly somebody, but just people that you look at and, you know, reach out to and ask, hey, how'd you do that? What is it? I think we have to be more open in this industry about sharing ideas and sharing things that we do. And then, you know, at the end of the day, if it doesn't make sense to you, see if you can do a preceptorship with them. Reach out to them and see if they're willing to take you on and be able to follow them for a day. Even if you have to pay a little bit money, it is their time, and their own practice that you're getting a nice experience for. But you know, it is always nice. You know, I definitely love it when I get to go train other clinics, because I think I learn some things from those. I pick up little pearls here and there on things that they do that may better my practice and better my patient experience on that aspect of it. So finding good mentors, finding good peers is really important, and that's one of the things of why Lori and I created this mentorship program. Because I know a lot of practitioners out there work maybe by themselves, solo, and they really don't have that back and forth. I'm definitely blessed. We have a big enough clinic group that we can actually bounce ideas back and forth. I do it with my PAs, I do it with my partners all the time, where it's like, hey, what do you think of this? Hey, what you want to play on this? You know, I think playing and understanding where the limitations are, but pushing that boundary every so often is very, very important. Okay. What else? As far as another thing is making sure that you build good patient rapport. I think patient rapport, understanding how to, you could say, sell. This is an industry, you guys have to understand, it is an industry where you do sell, an education selling in that aspect of it. I don't think I sell with the purpose of just selling things. It's not trying to sell, you know, ice to an Eskimo. We're trying to sell patients on the ideas of things that we can improve, because they are looking for improvement. They are looking to stay younger, to help themselves age gracefully in that sense. And aging gracefully is going to be different in the hands of, in the eyes of different practitioners and with the patients themselves. You know, ultimately, the whole aspect of why they're aging, explaining that, being educated about that, so that the patient understands that you're not trying to just sell them just for the hell of selling them, that you're really, really starting to change them, and really, really look out for them as far as building a relationship, because this is going to be a relationship over the many, many years that you are in this. I mean, I'm blessed that I have patients that have been seeing me now for the last 10 to 15 years. And they trust me. I don't really, honestly, a lot of my patients, my MAs get super annoyed at this, as they'll come in and my MAs go, and I try to figure out ahead of time, what are we going to be doing? And my MA's like, ugh, don't even bother. They just said whatever you want. And you walk in and we chit chat, and of course the patient's like, yeah, whatever you want to do, this is what I feel, and stuff like that. So educating, building that relationship is really, really important. I think a lot of practitioners are very, very scared about telling a patient that they need this, but I think it's about helping the patient understand why they're seeing a nasolabial fold. You know, if they're seeing a nasolabial fold, then you can say, hey, you know, some of your, you know, the maxillary bone is starting to internally rotate, which is causing you to lose some support. So I want to go down to your piriform and create a little structure and support into this area. As well, some of your zygoma, this fat pad in this cheek area, as well as maybe in this temple area, is starting to drop and lose volume. I need to replace some of that volume so it actually really picks this area, picks up the cheek, which softens out this nasolabial fold. So if you can explain it in the way, and this goes back to understanding the why, if you can explain it in a way that makes the patient understand why you're doing things, they're going to trust you a lot more and say, hey, maybe I don't have a budget today, but I would like to do that. And so this is about educating. Of course, everything is about, you know, staying within your patient's budget and being able to achieve what they do. And also saying no when you're not going to be able to achieve what you want to achieve, or their expectations are too high. I do say no. I'll tell my patients, you know what, we're going to need 4 or 5 syringes to address that and really address it well. If you're okay, we can start off with 2, but you understand we're going to need more into this area to really address it. Don't be that type that just like, oh yeah, 1 syringe, yeah, we'll be fine with that. Because ultimately, you're going to leave them with a bad taste of you being a bad injector. Secondarily, you, the product being not good, not lasting long. Because ultimately, remember, if you're not filling up the patient properly, 1, it's not going to last them very long. And two, they're going to be very unhappy and blame the industry and the product that it does not work for them. And it's going to take all of us as injectors to really reconvince this patient that actually it wasn't the fault of the actual product. It unfortunately was that you didn't get enough product to fill up the area. And be honest with your patients with regards to that. So educating your patient really, really well. You know, I'll tell patients, and I use analogies all day long. All day long, I love analogies. You know, if I tell patients, hey, we're going to need 3 syringes, and they want to just do 1 syringe, I'll be like, okay, we can do 1 syringe. However, it's like you going to the gas station and your car says you need 20 gallons of gas, but you only want to put 2 gallons in. It will drive. It will get you some results. It's not going to last you very long. As long as you understand you have to keep coming back to the gas station to keep filling it up, I'm okay with it. But this is the expectation, and you need to set those expectations correctly for your patients. If you don't set them correctly, they will blame you, they will blame the product, and they will say this is not for me, and they will turn their back on this industry in a sense because you didn't do a good job for them in the first place. First impressions are huge, you know, in general in life. And if you give them a bad impression of what this field is because you didn't do the right thing for them, then that is on you, unfortunately. And so hopefully this talk is helping you guys grow a little bit more confidence in really, really being honest with the patient in a sense, and really educating them properly on expectations. Don't be afraid of, you know, you could say selling them on more syringes because you feel as though, oh, they can't afford it. I think that is one of the things that, for me, I'm definitely not a salesperson, but I think as I've grown over the years of being more confident in what I can do and what I can achieve, it definitely has become more like, hey, you know what? We're not going to achieve what you want or what your expectation is with that 1 syringe. We're going to need 3 syringes. So if you don't want to do the 3 syringes, then why don't we save your budget and make sure when you get the budget for the 3 syringes, we do it properly. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's what's going to help you build great relationships because you're going to get better outcomes. Your patient's going to love you more because you were able to get them the results that they expected. You know, another analogy that I use is, you know, with practitioners is if you go to, and you know, people, I love going out to eat, but if you like the type of person that goes out and you spend $100 on a dinner, it's not cheap, you know, but service was food was would you go back and spend $100 at that place? Probably not. And $100 isn't an exorbitant amount of money, but it's not a little. I mean, it's not overly over the top. Over the top would be like a $300 dinner. You went to a $300 dinner, but service was amazing. The food was amazing. Everything was on key, on par. Most of us would say, you know what, that was worth it. I'll save up money to do that experience again. Because life is about experiences that we want, and we want all good experiences. So if you're selling them $100 dinner and it didn't live up to the expectation, do you think they're going to come back and do it again? Probably not. Not until they really, really feel as though they really need to, and they probably will go somewhere else. So really, really be honest when you're educating your patients about this, about what you can do and what you can achieve for them. What else? Learning. Learning is very, very important. You know, ultimately, you know, constantly learning is important, whether it's from YouTube, whether it's from online, whether from educational sources like this, whether it's from conferences. As I said earlier, for the newbies, don't wait for companies to train you. You know, as a trainer for some of the companies, I'm limited in what I can actually teach you because the companies are bound by FDA guidelines, and I cannot train outside those off-label areas. I can only train on-label areas with those type of trainings. So don't expect those trainings to be the best training ever. They will be decently good trainings on those on-label areas, but off-label areas, you're not going to get any experience. Those are the times that you want to go and find someone who's going to be that mentor, who really will help you grow in that aspect of it, or pay for a good educational class where maybe you can get some hands-on. I really tell practitioners, hands-on experience it's where it's at. You can watch it. I think as you get more experience and you've had a bunch of years of experience and understand tissues and understand different tissue planes and how to use your tools properly, I think watching a video or watching in person, you really can emulate and replicate those. But earlier on in your career, having someone guide you into the right tissue planes, into where you want to go, I think that is important to really get those hands-on courses. But ultimately, early on, pay for your education. Pay for the education so you are educating yourself properly. Don't base it off of just what you see on Instagram and YouTube and things like that. Pay for someone, pay for a class where you are getting good hands-on experience and you're really guided properly. You know, that is why we created some of our courses here. And what I love when we thought about our courses is, especially like our foundations course, is that we actually videotape you while you're injecting. So you get the whole day of videotaping, because I remember back in residency when we were doing these practice patients, they would put you in a room and they'd record you, and then you'd rewatch it, and your preceptor would, you know, critique you where you could have gotten better in your, you know, your taught or when your patient experience in a sense. And so that's kind of where it stuck with me. And so when we created our schools, we really focused on not just the why, but when we're doing the hands-on portions, we record it so that a week later our students get the recording of themselves injecting. Because a lot of times when you're injecting, and I see this all the time when I'm training, I tell the practitioner to move their hand because it's not in the right place, and they will move it, but I feel as though what goes in one ear goes out the other ear, and they really didn't understand why they made that adjustment or why I was telling them to make the adjustment. So, you know, having that in mind, that's why we created and we videotaped our students so they can go back and really rewatch it so they can understand what they were doing and why we were changing them and why we were telling them to do something different or move the needle in a different way or the cannula in a different way. But those are the experiences that you really want, a good foundational experience so that you really get an understanding of hands-on. I especially really recommend that with threads for any of you guys that are jumping into the thread game. That really is feeling that plane. It took me a couple of trainings, 2 to 3, 4 trainings where I paid for to really get a good feel of it. Doing it one time, I don't think it really is, you know, the end all. Going to different people and learning from different people. Everybody has their own unique technique in their own way. You don't have to emulate it or copy it exactly. You know, early on, you're going to copy everything that you're learning, and hopefully as you get better, you are expanding upon that and throwing in your artistry, throwing in your own flair to what you do. And that's the whole thing. It's a replicative thing early on, and then it becomes an artistry after you really get your experience. Okay? So, you know, early on, classes, pay for your own classes as you get better. Conferences are great. I think conferences are beautiful for those that have a decent foundation experience and now they're ready to start learning, adding to their tool chest of learning different techniques, challenge themselves to expand beyond their comfort zone and really start to learn outside of that. And that's kind of where I think the conferences really are helpful to expand your mind and to meet some of your peers and really meet people in the industry so that you guys form your little groups so that you can bounce ideas and really grow together as an industry. So that's kind of where I would say learning is constant. It really is constant. Even for me and Lori, I think we constantly bounce ideas, and you know, there's always going to be new things out in the marketplace that are coming out, and so it's for us to learn. I think, you know, like Quo just came out, and so now we're all starting to play with Quo. We'll see where that takes us and what potentials we can use that for in the future. So there's a lot to learn in this industry, and so you should be constantly educating yourself. You know, at least one conference a year for those that have good experience, I think is very important. and that. Lastly, what else? Building relationships with your salespeople. Really, that actually is super important, honestly. I think that if you build relationship with some of the salespeople, you'll be able to get trainings for one thing, but they can help guide you on one, maybe finding a better position, two, on where to get good education, because they're seeing multiple different clinics and both bumping into tons of different people in the industry, that they can give you some guidance on where you can go get better education or where you can, learn more. And they can really, if you're a business owner and you own your own med spa, they can really help you grow your business. Yes, sometimes it is cheaper to try and buy from these, buy groups and stuff like that. But ultimately, as you do grow, and I was one that early on in my career, I bought from buy groups so that I can get the cheaper price. But ultimately, the sales rep that I had from Galderma, Deanna, which was Medicis back then, I really remember her sitting down and say, hey, if you start buying from us, these are the things that we can help you do and grow from there. And so we actually end up switching. And she really has been instrumental in us growing to our 6 or 7 clinics here in the Southern California area. And we're still great friends today. And we look back on it and we laugh about it. But, my salespeople have been part of my growth in this industry. I name bunches, a couple of laser reps, a couple of salespeople in the injectable world that really have become great friends and great, we could say mentors in a sense. I asked them, hey, what are you seeing out there? What are you seeing other clinics do? And really they can come back and let you know on how to continue growing, what may be some of the trends that are going on the industry. So be a little nicer to your sales reps. They can be very useful, very helpful. Listen to them as far as how they can help you grow, where they can get education and things like that, because they really do have a different perspective. They come from a different perspective, and they can really help, if you're a business owner, really grow your practice if you really allow them to help you out instead of being very short-sighted. You have to look a little long-term sometimes and kind of do an investment into that where you are paying maybe a little bit more, but they're helping you grow on the backside into a bigger, better company in that sense. So I think we are down to the last 10 minutes, so maybe I should start answering some questions. Let's see, one of the questions, what do I think about the new airtight zero dead space needles? That is gonna be awesome. That's gonna be a game changer for all of us, just because I know a lot of you guys probably inject with insulin syringes. Yeah, you probably don't get waste into that aspect of it. But to me, I like to still use my 1cc with a 30 gauge needle or 32 gauge needle. You're still gonna waste in those aspects. You waste about 0.05. I think Lori did a great Instagram post on it. So you can look on her Instagram on where she squeezed out all of the fluid using water, and then she pulled back on them, and you could see from the no waste, there really was no waste. From the normal hub on a 30 gauge needle, there was about 0.05. So in my books, if I'm doing a Botox, it's probably equivalent to 2 units. If you're talking about Dysport, it's probably equivalent to about 5 units the way I dilute out. So in that aspect of it, you're probably saving a few dollars, if not more. So if you calculate it out and you have 3 areas that you're doing, glabella, forehead, and crow's, you're probably gonna save at least $10 to $15 just by using those 3 of the no waste needles, which I think run maybe about $1 or maybe less. I don't remember. They're already out, so you're gonna have to wait for them. I think they come back out in June. But yes, I think that is gonna be a beautiful game changer for us that don't use the insulin syringes to inject, and we just use the regular 30 gauge and a 1cc syringe. So yes. Another question. I've been in aesthetics for 20 years and the industry has been very competitive since it has flourished. However, since the explosion of social media, it appears that it has become more competitive and very cutthroat among injectors and providers. I don't know if it's been more cutthroat. I mean, I'm not huge on Instagram. I think Lori has way more followers than I did, and I really, honestly, I do have a marketing team, and they kept trying to force me to do Instagram and marketing, and I've been like, about it. But I think it's important to do social media and to show who you are as an injector and show who you are as a person. I think people appreciate that. Definitely marketing yourself out there. There still is usefulness. I think we do a lot of marketing as far as SEOs and really getting out there and marketing your practice. But you know, the best thing, honestly, is really to ask your patients who have been with you to do referrals. You know, I think that is still huge because ultimately their friends are seeing them who've gotten work done and know that they look good. That's honestly the best referral source that you still have out there. As much as social media is great, you have to also remember those social media people will also jump around. Unless they love you as a person, then they're probably going to stick with you. But ultimately, if they're a serial jumper, like they're a serial Groupon user, they're going to jump around. They're going to have no loyalty to you. And in that sense, it's up to you whether or not you want to play in that sandbox and go low on your pricing and stuff like that. We personally don't go low on the pricing. We go in the middle. I'm not the super high ones, but I'm not the super heavy, the super low ones. I think we keep in the mid range. I do recommend that you do a little bit of discounting here and there. I do it for my patients so they can afford to do multiple syringes. I don't do a ton, but you know, I may take $100 off if they're doing a third or fourth syringe, so that they can afford to do the 3 or 4 that I do recommend for them. I think that, you know, the industry is always going to grow. If you look at statistics, I think we're still only about 10 to 11, 12% market share as far as people coming in that could and should come in for getting stuff. So I think if you're doing good work and you're putting it out there and really educating somewhat, I think people love to see who you are as a personality and what your vision is for your patients, and putting out your, you know, some of your befores and after, talking about it, doing a little education on social media. I think it's definitely helpful. It establishes yourself as who you are and what you want to be known for. But I don't think it's as cutthroat, in my opinion. I've never in my career kind of looked at other clinics and saw what they're doing and trying to one-up them and keeping up with the Joneses. I don't think you need to. I think if you stick to who you are and really are excelling at what you're doing as far as being an artist in this field and really trying to up your game always, see how you can get your patients looking even better but still looking natural and aging gracefully, I think you'll always get patients who will come and gravitate towards you. You're going to build your own collection of followers in a sense, and that's kind of what I do. I know a lot of people complain, why don't I post patients pictures on my Instagram of older patients? Well, honestly, probably a good 50-60% of my patient population actually is more mature. It's just they won't let me post their stuff, so I can only post the younger ones. So I mean, I don't think that social media is so much of a completely determining factor. You want to be out there and show what you are and who your artistry is and who you are, but I don't necessarily think that it is something that is going to be completely competitive in the nature that's going to push down on your practice. as long as you're constantly growing yourself and getting, I think you need to ask your patients who love you for referrals. I mean, that's the best form of gratitude from your patient, is to send their friends and family to you. And that's kind of how you grow your basis. So if you're not asking your patients for it, one of my PA partners, definitely when he gets good responses, he gives them 3 brochures and say, keep one for yourself, but if you don't mind, can you hand these other 2 out to one of your good friends or family members that's looking to get this stuff done, and send them in. So I think there are many, many ways that you can get your patient population to come in. It doesn't necessarily need to be so much social media, but I think that definitely you can do it. Next question, do you recommend starting with injecting Botox first and then moving to dermal fillers? If you're afraid, sure. But in our class, I have newbies do both at the same time. But yes, I mean, at the end of the day, Botox is going to be a lot easier because it is really understanding the muscles. If you understand origins and insertions, where the muscle playing and what you're doing, at the end of the day, the harmfulness of Botox per se is very low on the scale. Even if you get a ptosis, 100% will resolve. So in that aspect of it, Botox is simpler, but Botox and fillers are still 2 different things that I think you're still going to have to learn. But if you want to jump into and start doing something, Botox is going to be a little bit simpler, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with doing Botox and fillers at the same time. When we do our training classes, we have the newer injectors do both of them at the same time with guidance. So I don't know if it really matters, because, I mean, yeah, Botox is easy. It's just injecting. But ultimately, I think that you just have to figure out where you're comfortable and keep pushing yourself. Keep pushing yourself. What else? What do I think about Accuvane? I think it's all right. I think overall, I mean, it only sort of shows you your superficial blood vessels. So it'll help you not bruise up your patients, but it's not going to show you like vascular occlusions, because most of those are going to come from deeper injections in that aspect of it. So I think Accuvane is nice, so you don't bruise up your patients in areas that have a lot of high congestion vascularity-wise, but it doesn't go any deeper than the superficial aspects of it. So that's just my opinion. I think it has its use. My clinics do have Accuvane for my nurses that feel that it's more comfortable, but remember, it doesn't show you anything deeper. It only shows you superficial. So take that with a grain of salt. Next, do I feel the rise of IG has pushed injectors to go off label to compete? I don't think so, because at the end of the day, if you're not injecting in off-label areas, depends what off-label areas you're talking about. I mean, if it's a nose, like Lori won't inject a nose. I'm comfortable injecting a nose because I've been injecting noses for a long time, and I feel that I'm okay taking that risk. I think you have to decide as a practitioner where you find that risk. It's kind of like driving a car. Are you the type that has to stay at that speed limit at 65 or 70 because that's your comfortability? Or are you like me and like to push it every so often to 120, 130 miles an hour? That really comes down to where your comfortability is with regards to that. So I don't think that IG has pushed us into a state of injecting more off-label areas. I think IG has opened up the aspect of other areas that can be injected. I don't think necessarily that there isn't an area that you can't inject in my books. Lori would probably disagree if she were here, but she's not here. But ultimately, I inject all different areas. I have a population of Asians, and I inject foreheads all day long. I inject noses. I've injected glabellas. Does it mean that everybody has to? No, I don't think it means everybody has to. And if you're not comfortable injecting, I think if you have a peer group that you're comfortable sending someone to, have your peer inject them in the area that you're not comfortable injecting. But if it's like an off-label area, like a temple, I think you need to go back and understand why you're scared. I think Dr. Surik says it well. The fear of injecting is the fear of anatomy. It's because you really haven't delved into really why you're scared of injecting into the area. And this is where I think as someone who has 18 years experience, go back and take a cadaver course. Figure out why you're scared about injecting into the area. Because honestly, we start off our newbies, like especially toxins. We just did our foundations course for newer injectors, and they always say, oh, we're not supposed to inject into this area. Don't inject into this area. That's what we were taught from certain classes. And I'd say, why? Why? Do you understand why you're not injecting that area? Because actually I inject into the brows, underneath the brows, throughout this whole area with toxins all day long. But I know why I'm injecting into there. If you don't know why, then you either need to look it up, because any area and every area should be injected and can be injected as long as you understand why you're injecting there or why you're not injecting there. Okay, so this is where you have to expand your mind and get educated on why you're not injecting that area. Because to me, in my books, I inject the whole face everywhere. Everywhere. You can inject there. It's just there are certain areas that are just going to be more dangerous than other areas, and you have to understand that. Are you willing to take that risk? If you're not willing to take that risk, like Lori's not willing to take that risk on a nose, so she'll send me her noses, or she's doing threads on noses. There are alternatives in certain areas, but ultimately you need to understand why you're not injecting that area. If you don't understand why, then you really are not educating yourself and growing from that. One last question, and then we'll go to some final wrap up, because we have our contest. Can you state the exact name of those no-waste syringes and where to buy them? The no-waste syringes are going to be, I believe, Airtight is selling them. They're the ones that sell the TSK cannulas and that nice green, the green syringe. I forgot what it's called, but I think it's Airtight is the one that will be selling them, and I think they're just called no-waste needles, right? If not, email us at learn@theaestheticimmersion.com and we'll get you the proper contacts and the proper name for it. So sorry team, but you're going to get some questions on that. But yes, email us if you have any questions with regards to that. All right, I think I've talked enough. Wow, it's already 7. I didn't even need Lori, right? Sorry, Lori, I missed you. All right, last thing is we have our new contest, our April contest, which starts May 4th today and goes to May 28th. It's going to be one winner, and you are going to win 2 tickets to the Aesthetic Show, which is in July. We're going to be there. We're going to have a booth there, so come visit us at the Aesthetic Show if you guys are going to the Aesthetic Show. But you're going to get 2 tickets to the Aesthetic Show. How you win or how you register for this contest is to follow us at the Aesthetic Immersion and follow the Aesthetic Show. Tag a friend you would want to take. Other than that, our winner for our last contest that I wasn't here for is going to be Danielle Stark, PA, at Danielle Stark, PA. So congratulations, Danielle. You won 2 tickets to the Aesthetic Show in July. We'll see you there. Other than that, if you have any questions for us, any questions for me, you're more than welcome to reach out and email us at learn@theaestheticimmersion.com or DM us on Instagram at theaestheticimmersion. Other than that, thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the next AI Live. Bye, guys. All right, Lori and Brian, you guys have hogged the spotlight enough. This is my show. My show. But maybe I'll share a little bit of the spotlight with you, Lori. We're going to talk about June 1st, dangerous techniques. 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 Techniques.